What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning into another episode. My name is Dwyan, and today we're going to be looking at this question. Does Kamala Harris have a black agenda? Does she? Let's check it out right now.
Here's something that I said when Obama was still in the White House. And that is, black voters are not going to give the next black nominee the same runway they gave Obama.
Nope.
I believe that there are a lot of African Americans who have said, folks I've talked to, I've interviewed, and the sentiment that I've gotten is that we did not demand of Obama what we should have, and we are not going to make that mistake again. I think it's going to be a lot harder for Senator Harris, Senator Cory Booker,
right,
or even if Eric Holder jumps in. It'll be a lot harder for them to lock up that black support like Obama did in 2008.
You reading my...
And that is so true, you know, and this clip was 5 years ago. So this was during the 2020 presidential run. I think this was actually 2019 when the presidential candidates were, you know, especially on the Democratic side, you had a lot of candidates coming in, wanting to be president, right? So this is, you know, Roland Martin is, you know, he's very popular. He has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He's been doing this for a while. And he is somewhat of an insider. And this is what he's been noticing, that black people are becoming more, hey, you know, we need a black agenda. Okay. And this is very true. And he's not the only one.
Does Cory Booker have a specific agenda for black people? And if so, what is it?
Look, man, I as an African American, you know, as a black person, so much of the realities for all Americans, if you look at the lens.
Okay. I'm not going to play it because he doesn't have a black agenda. All right. We're just going to hear googly gob. And he already started there, as you can see, for all Americans, you know. And so he doesn't. Okay. But you can see the question being asked there. And this is something that, and I give a lot of kudos to the Breakfast Club, because every presidential candidate faced this question that was coming in back in 2019, 2020. Okay. Check this out.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. I mean, come on. Take a look at the record.
This is the type of slap in the face. And black people went out to vote for this guy in 2020, like in incredible numbers. Okay. You ask this question, I don't have a black agenda. Not only does he not have a black agenda, he said he's already done it. Look at my record, second to none. I've already done it. You know what I'm saying? So this is the type of thing that infuriates me, because, you know, we as black people, once again, we're going to go and vote for this guy, you know, and now it's Kamala Harris because she's the new one. So let's hear what Kamala Harris has to say.
Now, also, I wanted to ask, you know, with Barack Obama, when he was in office, a lot of African-American people felt like he didn't do anything for black people. Yeah. They felt like he did everything for, you know, the LGBT community. He did things for, you know, Spanish community, Latinos, but nothing for African-Americans.
Yeah, so do you have an agenda for black voters?
Of course I do, but I also want to stand up for Barack Obama because, you know, first of all, none of us can do enough. And we all know that.
Just answer the question.
If you are a parent raising a child, you know we can never do enough.
Right.
As leaders, we can never do enough. It's important to acknowledge that.
This woman is all rhetoric. And again, you can watch the video if you want. She does not have a black agenda. All right. She does not have a black. She could not answer that question. She went into all kinds of platitudes and beatitudes and attitudes. It just wasn't working out. So I do this to raise the point that in the consciousness of the black community, as seen in the black media, right? Roland Martin, the Breakfast Club, and it happened in other places as well. But those are the examples I give you, that back in 2020, there was this concern. So the question now becomes, does Kamala actually have a black agenda? She couldn't answer the question there, but she was asked the question by the Grio, and let's see what her response is for that.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination and segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country.
Yes.
And in particular, Black people have not.
In particular.
And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would expect.
You see? And I'm happy the interviewer asked that question, because she's like, okay, I hear you. You just named all the problems that African Americans have. You named them, and they're specific to Black Americans. Okay? Racial disparities in housing, income, wealth, down the list. You talk about the history, right? But now when it comes to fixing that problem, fixing that disparity, you say, oh no, we'll lift everyone up. And by default, since more people percentage-wise are Blacks will come up. But we're going to have a policy for everybody. And this is the problem I have. Now listen. Let's listen to her real answer.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing.
Exactly.
It will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that.
Okay, so let's have a Black specific policy. If a Black, did you hear what she just said? Any policy that benefits Black people will benefit everybody. So let's have a Black policy then. I think she misspoke there. Let's go back.
All of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that.
No. Hold on.
Yes. Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country.
Okay, so why not do this policy for Black people if it's going to benefit the whole country?
Right?
No, not right. No. Absolutely not. I mean, she starts off by listing all the problems historically up to now that Black people are having, the racial wealth gap, the disparities. What's the solution? Oh, we're going to help everybody. We should be helping everybody anyway. That people who are finding life tough or who are below the income level, as she says, we should be doing that anyway. We should always be helping people who will be. No one is going to oppose that type of policy. But we're talking about what are we going to do to get Black people as a group, not individuals, people, as a group, as a collective, how can we get them to a place where they are truly on an equal footing with their white counterparts and what have you? You know, how are we going to do that? No black agenda. You heard it, right?
The reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No.
Of course not, you know, but we're still going to go out and vote for you anyway, because you're a woman and you're Black or half Black or whatever, or a woman of color. That's enough. We don't need anything else. And we don't like that the racist guy with the orange skin. Come on. Black people, please. We gotta do better than this. So I found a clip from back in 2006 when Kamala Harris was the San Francisco DA, district attorney in San Francisco. Okay. And I want to play this clip because Kamala Harris is very much aware of the fact that Black people, we're not on an equal footing with the rest of society, right? There is a disparity, right? And no one can deny it. You know, I know people are going to write in the comments that, oh, he's playing a victim mentality again. I'm not going to fall for that. We are looking strictly at statistics. We're looking at the realities of what's going on. There are disparities, huge disparities, racial disparities, right? Between Black and white people in America. No question about it. Okay. And she's very much aware of these disparities and these issues. Listen to what she says here back in 2006.
The criminal justice system is not working for the African American community. I can tell you as the chief law enforcement officer for a major city in this country that it is not working. We see that in the statistics that you've outlined. 2 million people are in the prison system in this country. Over 40% are African American, in spite of the fact that we only constitute 13% of the general population. It's not working. It's not working when we recognize that African American men, the leading cause of their death is homicide. We are overly represented both as victims and as defendants and as witnesses. Our communities suffer because our babies hear the gunfire every night. So the 7-year-old has post-traumatic stress disorder and cannot go to school the next day and learn. The criminal justice system is not working for us. What I think we have failed to do as a community.
Okay. She knows very well, you know, and like she said, that was her thing, you know. So she knows the disparities. She knows the problem. She says it's not working for us. So what are we going to do? We're going to help everybody. That doesn't make sense. We got to help the people who it's hurting, who it's not working for. I just need Roland to remind us all again of what Black people really think and really feel.
What I have been sensing and hearing and reading is you're going to have to put forth an agenda that is specific to African Americans.
Right.
That's not this general thing.
President of all America.
If Obama kept talking about rising tide lifts all boats,
Right. Yep.
I've been getting the sense Black people are saying, no. What's your Black specific agenda?
Right.
And then we'll get to everybody else. Spencer, your thoughts on that?
I'm picking on Roland Martin a little bit because, you know, that's the footage that I have. But what's interesting is that after Roland said what he said 5 years ago, what is he doing this year?
Joining the Wind of Black Men called. We had a phenomenal response on Monday. Some 55,000 folks signed up for the call. We raised $1.4 million. It's been lots and lots of intensity. A lot of people really responding. In fact, it's interesting. Y'all may have seen this. I'm going to send it to Keenan, and we could play it later. There was a young lady.
Okay, we're not going to get into that. After we heard his comments about, you know, we're not just going to let Obama, the next Obama, which is Kamala Harris, slide. We have to demand something specifically for Black people, right? Kamala Harris doesn't have a Black agenda, Roland, at all.
The reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No.
But here he is now raising $1.5 million. And I think it's probably even more than that. This is an old clip. Black men for Harris. And getting Black men to donate all this money and to raise money for Kamala Harris, the Black woman without a Black agenda. Let's just say it how it is, you know. But here we are again, Black people. We just continue to vote Democrat, right? Vote blue no matter who. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure if you ask him, he's going to say, well, she doesn't have a Black agenda, but we don't want Trump. That's what people will say. And you know, I've heard that even in my own circles, you know. We just don't want Trump, you know. So this is for me, this is sad, you know. I think that Black Americans, we need to demand more for our vote. Otherwise, we don't vote. And I know that is like sacrilege in the Black community. It's like, what? Our people died for the vote. Really?
I mean, people play this weird psychological game where on the one hand, they'll say, look, you know, don't take it so seriously. Voting is not an expression of your inner soul. It's just a choice you make on election day. You say, okay, well, then my choice on election day is not to vote for either of them. Well, what do you mean? You have to pick one. You have to pick one. It's your duty to pick one. It's like, it's like they don't have their story straight. You know, what did George Carlin say? Trump. He said, you know, people like to say people who don't vote have no right to complain. He said, I think it's the exact opposite. I think people who don't vote are the only ones who have a right to complain, because when whoever you voted for does something horrible, I can say, look, I had nothing to do with it. I think the default should be not to participate and only vote for someone if they give you a reason to, because mathematically voting is like the most inefficient expression of political sentiment. I mean, you're one in 300 million votes. So unless you really feel like you're going out and voting for something, I think it's your choice not to do it. People didn't die for your right to vote. They died for your right to choose whether or not to vote. Freedom of participation is freedom to decide whether or not to participate at all. And so, you know, all the self-righteous virtue signaling about voting and who you have to vote for, you know, it just seems to be deployed for convenience.
Bam. Bam, 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 bam. Couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I know someone who also says it pretty damn good.
Be skeptical of anybody telling you to vote and not telling you to ask for anything, or to tell you to just vote and not to get anything for your vote. That's not how it works. That's not the process. You don't vote just to vote. You vote because you're getting something, or your community is getting something.
Why it's important that Black people actually have an agenda. And even more importantly, that they vote for someone who is at least committed to, if not the entire agenda, some parts of it. You know what I mean? And really, the main fundamental reason is the racial disparity that exists in America in 2024. Now, I've done a whole video on this where I show charts and I do the stats and everything like that. And I show racial disparities in practically every single sector: education, politics, the economy, you know. But I think standing above all of those racial disparities, I think the biggest one is the disparities in the racial wealth gap in America. The wealth gap, not income, wealth, right? The stuff that's passed on, right? The racial wealth gap between Blacks and whites in America in 2024 is wider now than it was in 1960. Okay? Even though some Blacks are doing better now, right? But a lot more whites are doing better now. So the gap is widening, and it continues to widen. So I prepared this little graphic just to try and illustrate in a very simplistic form some of the reason why a Black agenda is important. Okay, so we can see, to start off with here, I used a 100-meter race, right? So in a 100-meter race, you have a starting line, obviously, and the finish line. And I said that the finish line here is like the American dream, and then you have the starting line here. So obviously, we want all people to start on an equal footing at the starting line, right? So B is going to represent the collective Black race in America, okay? African Americans, Black Americans, whatever terminology is being used now, okay? I would say Blacks in America, okay? And I'm saying that let's put them at the starting line. But what I'm also saying is that the white collective, white race in America, they've had historically a head start in this 100-meter race. And that's why I've put them up there. You see, they're already at the 50-meter line. And, you can see from this who's closer to the American dream, who's further away from the American dream. And you can see that if this was a race, a real 100-meter race, there's no way, right, all things being equal, that the Black collective can catch the white collective, right? And remember, I said that the racial wealth gap is widening, has widened. It's bigger now in 2024, when supposedly this is a post-racist society, but that racial wealth gap is wider now than it was in 1960. Okay. What are the reasons for it? And let me just go back to say that why, some people will say, well, why are you saying that whites had a head start? Well, let's look at it historically, right? This head start, these are 7, and this is not an exhaustive list, but I think these are some of the biggest government policies that transformed white Americans and really created the middle class, the upper middle class, and gave them immense opportunities in education and housing in particular, okay? And it transformed them. And this was the head start, because all these things that you see, all these different government programs or policies that you see on the screen right now, Black people did not partake in it. Yes, you could find a handful of Black people who got a few things here, but the absolute majority of Black people had nothing to do with this. And you can see, with the exception of the first one in 1862, the Homestead Act, which was basically free land that was given to the white population of this country and really opened up the West, right? Basically free land, With the exception of that, all the others you see occurred between 1935 and 1956, okay? And many people believe that these series of policies really is what made America, particularly for whites, is they got wealthy, they got a head start, right? Because a lot of these are housing loans, cheap interest rates, easy access to loans and money. Of course, the Social Security Act was a security blanket in 1935. Social Security, everybody's familiar with that, all these things are basically when affirmative action was white. And I put the book here, I got the book here myself, this book by Ira Katz-Nelson. I strongly recommend this book, When Affirmative Action Was White. And the modern day white community, I don't think they realize that they had their many years of affirmative action. You understand what I'm saying? Many, many years of affirmative action. Now, as a result of this head start, what it has done is that the gap between the racial wealth gap has continued to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay? And it's directly related to this head start and to those policies. Okay? So the question is, what can be done about it? Well, there are 4 options. Okay? Let's look at them. Option 1. Remember, we want to get to a level playing field, right? Because a lot of the young people today think we're on a level playing field, but we're not on a level playing field. Okay. So option one is basically the white collective have to lose something or give up something, go back, so to speak, to get back to that starting line, because that's where the blacks are, and that'll be the level playing field. And then now we can run the race. Now we can run the race. So that's option one. Option one is very highly unlikely. It's almost impossible. It will never happen, because the white collective, as I've said in other videos, the white collective don't support even reparations. So they're definitely not going to want to lose any of their wealth and value. Okay. So but that is an option to get us back to this level playing field. Then we have option two, a sort of meet me in the middle option. The whites lose a little bit, the blacks get a little bit, in order to get both of them, say, to the 25-meter line in this 100-meter race. And then we're back on a level playing field again. But again, this option, in my estimation, is also not likely, because it does involve whites sort of losing a little or giving up a little bit, And as I said, they're not really, they're not really in favor of that. But that is another option in order to get us to this level playing field. Option number three, help everyone equally. And that's kind of what Roland Martin was alluding to, that black people, no, we want a black specific agenda. We don't want this help everybody agenda. Now, if you look at the help everyone equally, you can see that if everyone moves up 25 meters, that's great. The blacks have moved up 25 meters, they're closer to the American dream. The whites move up 25 meters, they're even closer to the American dream, right? And when I say the American dream, I just mean that, you home ownership, you own your house, you have basically a functioning family, you have access to money, all that sort of stuff that, you setting your children up to do even better than you do better than your parents. That's the American dream, right? So, but you can see here that even if we did this, and I think this is a policy that a lot of even whites are willing to, listen to, let's help everyone. That's what Kamala Harris is talking about. I'm not just going to do something for black people, and she starts saying, no, we got to do it for everybody. And black people will disproportionately do better because most of them are in the target group, so that's everybody, lift everybody equal. But you see here, what's the problem with this? The problem with this is that, okay, everybody does equally better, but what? The racial wealth gap is still there. You see, the key is the gap between the racial wealth gap, and why is that important? Because then it means that people are not, we're not on an equal footing. That's why it needs to be addressed, and that's why we need a black agenda. Option 4, obviously, is that the blacks move up to the 50-meter line, right? The whites are not willing to go back, okay? So then we move the blacks up to the 50-meter line, and then now we all have an equal footing. And of course, I put there reparations, but it's not just reparations, okay? Even though reparations does cover a lot, but you can see straight away that, that is something that is, I would say option 4 is really the only, I wouldn't say that it's the only way of leveling the playing field, is that meet me in the middle thing as well. But I would say that this is definitely why a black agenda is needed, right? A specifically black agenda. And I'm going to end on this note. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it very much. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to be on this. We're going to keep at it. Let's do it.